So I wanted to ask you all a few questions about Rock the Block, which is really dope. And I wanted to know, how did you all get into your careers, and a little bit on how others can get into their careers as well, and the road that led you to HGTV and Rock the Block.
Ooh. Okay.
Ladies first.
I would say Michelle. Well, I've been, okay, I'm trying to remember the order. I've been a real estate broker for 20 years, and my full-time career, raised my babies in real estate, put them through private school, graduate them all from college. And when they were in college, I said, you know what? They're grown. It's time for me to be on TV. So I wrote an email. I, created a show. It was called Joined at the Flip. And HGTV was like, hey, we like it. So they gave me a pilot. But that turned into, once it aired, we did well. They gave me the series. But then they were like, you know what? We're going to put you in a franchise they were developing called, oh, Lord, look at all the shows I've been on. Let me think of which one.
Come on.
Super Flop Nashville. And then when that ended, after the second season, they got rid of the whole franchise, except the original one out here in California. Then I moved back home. I was in Nashville. I moved back home to Los Angeles. And then I said, okay, well, listen, I have the bug now, so I got to stay on TV. So a few people pitched me some shows and they didn't really resonate with me. I said, you know what? I wrote a show before, so I created another show called Fix My Flip, pitched it again, got it greenlit in 2020, and then season 2 will be airing very soon.
Yes.
Sort of. It's been a blessing, though. I mean, it's a hard business to be in and to stay in. You have to stay creative, to stay on your toes. You have to stay, with connecting with our people. I mean, basically, because we're on a network that we are not represented. Well, actually, HGTV is doing such an amazing job putting more people of color on, but the audience pool isn't there yet. So you being here, Kelsey, is really, important, because we need more people of color to know that there are people of color on this network, so that we can even widen that audience even more. So it's so important to have, Black media representation. So I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna pass it to you.
Oh, it's my turn.
Okay,
Okay, so I have been an interior designer probably for like the last 15 years. I had a fashion background before, and interior design was kind of my way of merging what I loved as a kid, architecture, and the fashion that I followed into. I get to do what I love with architecture and textiles every day in interior design. So it kind of was the perfect answer to all the things I was passionate about. And I still have all the same influences. And when it comes to television, I was honestly trying to hide for a long time. I really wanted to hide for a long time. But when I started, I admired people who built brands. I was in love with what Martha Stewart did, what Tom Ford did, people like Philippe Starck, able to have such major contributions in the industry and lend their names to and their talents to different areas and different categories inside of it. And I want to do the same thing. And television was the perfect medium to help me on that road. If that makes sense. That make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay.
Well, when I was in college at the University of Alabama, I competed in drag pageants. And once I graduated, it was kind of like I still had the zest to compete creatively, but I didn't know where to put it. So my first job post-college was at Neiman Marcus, and I heard about the show, Project Runway. I submitted, got on the show, didn't win the first time, didn't win All-Stars the second time, but on my third try, I won the show. And that's really where I was able to transition my desire to compete in that capacity. And after that, well, let me say this. In the midst of all my fashion background, I always had a love and a zest for interior design. Not formally, but just like this, I just always followed it. I didn't know nobody's names or nothing. I just put things the way I thought they should go. And then Michelle and I, years later, became friends. And I was a fan of Michelle already. I think we were a fan of each other's work, but I definitely was like, who is this man and what is he doing like in the world? And once we became friends, it's crazy to say this, but he almost gave me the permission slip. Like, just because you don't come from interior design doesn't mean you don't have a voice in that space. And we have been figuring out ways to work on projects together. And then it led to the interior design space. And it's like now I get to transition that love from competing in pageants and Project Runway. Now we get to do it on Rock the Block.
So
together.
Michelle,
I'm going to compete on Project Runway next season.
Perfect.
oh, yes.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I can see it. So Michelle and Anthony, you all are friends. You work together, you have a show together, and now you are both partners on Rock the Block. Can you speak to your process in renovating this home in Colorado, especially because you're taking your experience from the South, your experience in fashion? How did you take that to the Colorado home in your process for renovating?
That's a great question, because we are super Southern. Anthony's from Alabama. I'm from Louisiana, and we met in Georgia. I mean, you can't get any more Southern. And there's so many principles and so many things are like ingrained in us that we took to Rock the Block. We designed from the standpoint of hospitality because that's what we were raised on. And it's kind of beautiful the way that shows up in design, where you want that first impression to be important and the person's experience in the home to be important. And we had to figure out how to make that show up on television, on camera. How do you share an experience through the lens of a camera? And so we spent a lot of time doing that and creating really tactile things and experiences throughout the house that would and details that wouldn't be missed by the viewers. How do you say this room is warm without saying this room is warm? You know what I mean? We really were analytical about every space. And I think the great foundation about our relationship is that, as he said earlier, we respect each other a great deal. I was a fan of his, he was a fan of what I did. And so I can take criticism from Anthony. He can tell me, hey, Michelle, what you did yesterday was amazing, but today I don't know. I think we can do this a little bit better. It can be a little bit stronger. Is this the best that we can do? And one great thing about having your friend on your side is that, when it gets tough for me, he's picking up the slack and vice versa. So I think you'll be able to see that kind of real chemistry. In the show, it's really palpable in Lux for Less, and I think it comes across again on Rock the Block.
If I could just piggyback what Michelle said, the one thing that never wavered was we knew our commitment to service and consideration of the actual house. Like the house, and I'm sure Paige can agree, no matter what the weather was, no matter the resources that didn't ship on time, the house remained number one, and we remained committed to making sure we served the house.
Yeah,
I love that.
You're out here in Colorado. You got this amazing opportunity. You can't get there and say, well, this is too hard, or it's too cold outside, or the conditions suck. You have to leave it all on the floor. Yeah. And not everybody gets this opportunity. In the movie, it said, a million girls appeal for this job. We would say that to each other.
We would quote that day.
Devils Wears Prada constantly. A million girls will kill for this job. So let's act like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Paige, you and your partner, Mitch, you all had 6 weeks, $250,000 to renovate a 5,000 square foot property. Well, how did you all take on this challenge? And what was your first step in approaching this project?
Well, our first step was to use our experience. Together we have 40 years of contractor and real estate broker experience, so we understand markets. I pride myself on knowing the buyer, knowing what the buyer wants, and that's where we started. So we had a little bit of reverse engineering. Where are we going? As soon as I found out what the address was, I went straight to the internet and started pulling up everything I could about that market. And then we found out how expensive these houses are. I am able to say that when each team walked into the house, before we touched it, it was worth $1.9 million. And so now we have a base point of where we can go. So we just have to go up. We have to start building our ladder and go up. So that was our strategy, our experience, knowing this market and renovating and reimagining this house from that buyer's standpoint.
And for homeowners who are watching, my assumption is that they're going to get a lot of inspiration from the show, but do you have any tips for people wanting to renovate and they want a luxury finish, but may not have a huge budget?
That's such a great question for Michelle and Anthony, since that is their show, Lux for Less. On Fix My Flip, we spend a lot of money. So, I have to put in money a lot of times to get these houses up to market value. I do show the flippers how to do it for less, from a standpoint of get outside of what's safe with the black, the grays, and the whites. You know, constant in flipping and on flip shows. You can do color, you can do patterns, you can do, these, just bursts of inspiration without busting your budget. So I do that, so my response to that is get outside of what's safe and what's basic. Use color, use, beautiful patterns, and don't be afraid of that when flipping, because the buyers in this market are looking for that custom look and feel. They know, if a flip is just white, black, and gray, they're like, oh, this is just a basic flip, so I'm not going to pay XYZ anymore because buyers are in control now. So they're looking for that custom feel, that I can toss over to the guys, because they specifically know, because that's what they teach on the show, of how to have that look and feel for less when your budget is super tight.
A smart strategy, Paige, honestly. For me personally, and I'm sure Anthony's answer is different, but for me personally, I always want to start with what the priorities are for the homeowner. Once you decide what your priorities are and you've got a list of what those non-negotiables are, then we already know how to start allocating money. And we're not like, we don't have tricks for creating extra money, but we find the money in the budget. Okay, we can save here to create money for that luxury that you want. So it's really just smart designing, figuring out what your priorities are, and then also logic. We spend money on things that make the most sense, that you have the most contact with, that need to have the longest lifespan, or things that will age well. Those are the things that are most valuable to me. A bonus is an emotional response. When a client has an emotional response to something, then you've done your job. That it's important to them. And it's not a good episode of Lux for Less if our client isn't like, I would have never thought of this. I couldn't imagine we could have this, or that, I can't believe this is my house.
What I love about both of our shows, Michelle and Anthony, is that for me, I'll take a client to a textile shop. I'm like, okay, here's white subway tile for X amount per square foot. Here's a beautiful glass pink tile for the same price. Yeah. Let's go with this and make it pop out. And on their show, they're able to take their clients to this luxury home that's 10,000 square feet and say, listen, all of this is a $100,000 kitchen. I'm going to show you how to take the inspiration ideas from this kitchen and put it in your home on your budget. And that's what I love about our two shows. And that's where they mirror each other for that viewer.
Well, that also is incredibly important in our community, because the idea of what I do every day with clients, these are people who have larger budgets, sometimes more than the television clients, and they still don't know that they deserve to have these luxuries. And what we do is educate them along the way. We're providing a service and educating them on what we do at the same time, and making them know that these things are also accessible to you. They fit into your budget. You can actually have that thing you aspire to if you just learn, if they just know the options are there.
Yep. Mm-hmm. They don't know. Sorry, Anthony.
No, you're fine. On Lux for Less, as well as Rock the Block, we provide a lot of hacks that will inspire people, whether they own a home or not. But it is filled, ideas as small as like changing the handles on your cabinets in the kitchen, that can make the world of difference. But that is something that they can expect from all of us. Because I'm sure y'all had hacks too, Paige, but we have a lot of hacks on Rock the Block.
No, we spend a lot of. We don't have many hacks on Rock the Block. We spend all our money. We were poor.
I thought they was making all of us come up with these incredible hacks. But
was Mitch Blue. My hack, I'm telling you, I'd say, Mitch, you can build a secret door. I know you can. And he'd be like, yes, Paige, I can definitely try. So, poor Mitch,
Anthony, which one of us want to take woodworking classes?
So speaking of hacks, can you share 3 of your favorite hacks?
Okay, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kelsey, what'd you say?
Can you share 3 of your favorite hacks for homeowners wanting to renovate, but they have no idea what to do?
Watch our shows. Number 1.
I love that. Okay, let's do a collective few because that's a tough one. Anthony, what's yours? What's your favorite hack?
Well, I gave mine earlier, so I'm gonna say it again. Like changing the handles and like the drawer pulls, it really can make a difference. And learning how to select pulls that will have some longevity, because a lot of hands are touching those things. So that's something that I would say.
One of my favorite hacks from episode 1 of our show, the runner that you put up your staircase, we actually bought like runners online as opposed to having it done custom. And I've never done that before. It was something we actually discovered on set. And we bought like 3 of those for approximately $50 each. And we removed the old and added these in ourselves with the staple gun and, made the 2 meet underneath the lip of the stair. It was perfection. It looked just like a custom job, and it cost us $150 in material. And I know mine, for instance, was like $3,500 being custom, and you could not tell the difference. I was really, really proud of that hack, and we got a lot of feedback on that one. And when it comes to major spaces like kitchens, Anthony's hack for sure. I am friends with the people at the Scratch and Dent appliance store because it's the easiest thing to do. I mean, you can fix that so easily, or it's something that will never be noticed by any guest. And I see a dent in a refrigerator in the corner and take pride in the fact that I saved $3,000 on it, and it's the exact same one that I could have paid $10,000 for. There's so many hacks, but I'm agreeing with Paige. I'm going to go ahead and watch the show for the rest.
I think for me, especially when you're positioning a property on the market that maybe not be selling, and my clients call me and like, oh my God, the house isn't selling, and I can walk in, all of us can walk in and immediately know why the house isn't selling. So I focus on the different pulls, like Anthony mentioned, change all the pulls in the kitchen. Let's start there if that's needed. The light fixtures, you don't have to change every one, but in the key areas like the kitchen, the dining area, take out the old school fans. Like, does the design of a ceiling fan match whatever design you have in your house? I mean, these are things that are under $500. You can just order offline. Do a feature wall in a bedroom with trim, and then just paint the wall. These are just little things that change. And of course, with me and on my show, but also in real life, you have to stage the house. I mean, and you have to stage it well. Yeah. I mean, cheap staging doesn't work. Cheap staging looks like cheap staging, and if you have, cheap furniture, it's going to look like cheap furniture in a house that wasn't designed well. So that's where I spend money in a home, but you don't have to spend a lot of it. With the fixtures, some paint here and there, and some pulls, it'll change the whole look and feel of a house.
To your point, a design hack, and it's not a saving money hack, but a design hack is to have a narrative for the home, right? That it looks like the same person designed the home from room to room. It's the same point of view. You want that narrative to be consistent from the time you walk in and you walk all the way through the house and you leave. You want to have that same narrative, and you feel like, it wasn't just hodgepodge together because it is a flip and they didn't care as much about, making it make sense for the buyer or just assuming that the buyer would change everything once they got in there. They're choosing a flip for a reason. Budget is important. There's a ton of design hacks that we use in our show too. The things as simple as wanting your house to look more contemporary or more streamlined. In the South, Kelsey, we all have like this white crown molding at the top, and then the wall is another color, and it's a white baseboard. That it hurts me right here when I see that.
It's the pain of our existence.
It hurts me
like
too.
I literally paint everything the same color, please. Paint the trim and the walls the same color. I even do the same finish. And people are like, are you serious? But there's so much license in design that people don't know they can take. And paint is the cheapest, most effective way to change your mood and add value to a room. That's a huge hack.
Okay, so I wanted to get into design styles. And first page, you are a multifaceted real estate broker. You are a house flipping expert, a certified personal trainer, and a fitness entrepreneur. How did all of what you do influence your design style? And can you talk more about what is your design style?
Well, all of what I do comes from having to figure out how to raise 3 babies and not be poor. So I had to like tap in, I didn't go to college, but I put all 3 of my kids through college. I had to really tap into what's going to, give me the opportunity to raise my kids well, and that something I would enjoy. And real estate and design is something that has been such a blessing in my life for 20 years. Doing it full time is such an honor, right? Like you guys said, I forgot what the saying was from Mean Girls, but we get to be here, what I'm saying? So I get to be and live in this space, television removed, but in this real estate space. So that's something that I want to, keep educating myself on and keep learning about. So that's my inspiration, to eat well and to, learn my craft very, very well.
You listen, I called Paige every woman in the comment yesterday.
Yes, God.
Because I can hear Whitney, I can hear Shaka, pick your version, but it's every woman. But legitimately, I'm proud to know you because you did all those things to eat well, but you had a legacy of 3 girls. Then you led by example. You showed them that you can do all of this, and you gave them more than you had. So that's dope.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Michelle and Anthony, I want to talk about fashion and culture and how that influenced your design style. So you both have backgrounds in fashion, raised in the South, living in the South. How did being Black men in the design space with fashion and Southern backgrounds influence your design style?
Well, I guess in my life, I can only be who I am. And, I think that I learned to be, I remember auditioning for Project Runway, and I didn't realize I was being insulted, but they were asking me, what would you do if Anna Wintour sat next to you and had a problem with the way you speak with such Southern dialect? And I remember saying, well, she'll probably have to just move because I can't change, I'm not going to alter the way I speak, and that's how I approach this experience. Let's face it, to be chosen for such an incredible experience is such a blessing, but I really don't know how to be anyone else. And for as much as people was growing up, people weren't always kind in being an openly gay Black person. I'm glad that God let me live long enough that so I could be paid to be just who I am, and I don't have to be anybody else. And I think that that's a legacy for my life to be able to do so.
Pass the collection plate, somebody.
This is beautiful.
That'll preach. Okay.
Yeah.
That'll preach.
Yeah.
I will say that to Anthony's point, that's a big part of how I feel about it. Starting out was tough, no lie, because I was doing something that nobody that looked like me was doing in this town, and but this town was better than the town that I came from regarding opportunities. So I focused on the goals as opposed to the shit that was standing in the way. And that's just how I operate. Because those variables are just that, they're just variables. But I realized that, not only do I have opportunities, I have gifts, and it's my responsibility to use my gifts to the fullest. And I believe that serves me well. But I think anybody who's successful in anything focuses on the goals and not the things that are standing in the way. And interior design has been a space where I'm celebrated for all the things that made me weird growing up. This little boy that didn't know what to do with or couldn't find any seemingly any like-minded people who were interested in the same things. So, I was a little bit isolated, but it was preparation for this 100%. This opportunity to be celebrated, to find like-minded individuals who have very similar stories and we push each other forward. It is an amazing opportunity to be on HGTV and to be asked to be on Rock the Block, the big show on the network, and 3 brown faces out of 5, that's pretty incredible. I'm sorry, 8, that's pretty incredible. And we're competing at the highest level, and we're sharing so much. So Paige is moving from influencing her 3 girls to a nation of women who can be brokers and designers and builders. Anthony and I, what we do in the communities that we come from, specifically young Southern gay Black males and creative, dude, that's so many strikes. And to land here and to be able to do this and just be ourselves on TV, I mean, come on.
And I love that about HGTV, because I remember in 2016 when our first pilot aired, I was one of maybe 2 brown faces. Every now and then you would see if their show was able to stay on. And so now to see how far HG has come in just those 6 or 7 years, it's so incredible. That's why I said you're so needed, Kelsey, because there's more audience to get to bring to HGTV, because they opened up the doors and they're embracing us as we are. And a lot of networks might try to change you, but HG has not. So if I pop off a little bit, Anthony flips his hair.
Like you do.
We are who we are, and we're accepted, and we're embraced, and we're encouraged to continue being who we are. And I love that about where our network is right now.
Well, I love that. And I'm super excited to tune in to Rock the Block on HGTV on March 6th. It has been a pleasure speaking with all of you, and I'm rooting for all of y'all. I know you're on 2 different teams, but I'm rooting for both of y'all.
Thank you.
Kelsey, it's nice to meet you.